Fact checking and corrections are encouraged.
Can we get a cup of coffee in here, please?
Damn good coffee and hot.
Wake up, America. You've got a dog that needs walking. That's right, sunshine. Just put on a big pot of strong coffee and get ready to type your little hate mail with your opinions about kumbaya and flat earth insanity. Stand-up comedy? You want stand-up comedy? Well, we've got sit-down comedy. It's time for Coffee with the Dog. You make me laugh.
Oh, brother. Band is cooking. They get up early. The musicians, they're in the can, but they get up early. And they're loud, like rockheads. They want to be rushed. They want to be Tom Sawyer. That's who they want to be. There's only one Tom Sawyer. And it's not them. Oh, good morning, folks. It's Tuesday. You know, my least favorite day of the week. Good to have you here. It's Tuesday, August 1st, 2023. Yes, a new month. July, the longest month in the history of months, has finally ended. The heat is broken here in New York. We're having some pretty nice weather here. I hope it's cooling off wherever you are. I know Phoenix is still, people are going to the doctor from getting burnt from touching the ground. 3rd-degree burns from falling on the ground or walking barefoot. Serious stuff out there. We had some serious heat wave going on here, but it broke on Sunday. My brother arrived on Sunday and said it was cold. It was 92 degrees. We were playing an outdoor gig, 92 degrees with about 95% humidity, and my brother was cold because he's just spoiled, I guess. I don't know. I like it hot. But anyway, we have a good show for you today, a strange show. We are going to start with a comedian, a forensic humorist, which is the first time I've ever heard that expression. But now that I think about it, everybody in the arts is a forensics major in some way, whether it's comedy, music, acting, all of it. We all start as forensic whatever discipline we are studying. The second hour could be a little contentious. I got a guy named J.J. Carroll, who's an author, a former Border Patrol agent who has written a book about what he calls the intentional destruction of the American immigration system. He is a big-time Trump supporter and unapologetic patriot, and probably going to think of me as some kind of leftist communist person who hates America. That's what he's going to think of me. So it should be an interesting, perhaps contentious interview then. I'm probably going to start by ticking him off by playing my Broken Borders video, which, if you haven't seen it, a song was written in 1997 about the border issue from the perspective of Native Americans. And so that will probably already set him off in like, how dare I not take the white European perspective on everything. So we'll see about that. It could be, I got to admit, I'm a little nervous about how the conversation's going to go. If you know me, you know, not the biggest Trump fan there's ever lived. But and he appears to be the biggest Trump fan that has ever lived. So we should probably disagree on a certain amount of things. I hope we can keep it respectful. If not, it's probably good for ratings. Probably good for attention. I'll be able to make some hay out of it in some way or another. But so we look forward to that. I'll be back in just 1 minute. We're going to tell you about what you should be drinking right now, what I am drinking right now. One of the 10 best coffees in the world and the best coffee in America, which was probably brought to America by undocumented workers. I'm in a weird mood. What can I tell you? Koa Coffee is the best coffee in America, is rated by Forbes magazine, one of the top 10 best in the world, and you should get your own right now. I will be right back, and when we come back, you're going to meet G.D. Fenderson. Hold on. This episode is brought to you by Koa Coffee. If you are a coffee connoisseur and want to experience the best coffee Hawaii has to offer, no blends, no compromise, try the true taste of aloha. Koa Coffee produces premium Hawaiian coffee, hand-picked, expertly roasted, and delivered from Hawaii to your door with aloha. From award-winning 100% Kona coffee grown on the slopes of the Mauna Loa volcano to the unique mocha beans of Maui, they strive to provide their loyal customers with the best quality and freshness. Since 1997, Koa Coffee has been known far and wide as a product of utmost quality, and their awards prove it. Koa Coffee was featured in Forbes' Top 10 Coffees of the World. This is the coffee Forbes called the best coffee in America. Find out what it's all about. Go to minddogtv.com/coffee. Find out what it's all about. It's about coffee. I mean, how difficult, how complicated do we have to make it? It's about pretty girls running on the beach, turning around. That's not about coffee. I think she wants a little more than coffee from me. Uh, I, I would definitely like to meet that young girl on the beach and have a cup of coffee and talk about what it's all about. It's all about coffee. I think you're going to like my first guest today. I think I'm going to like him. To be honest with you, this is my first time meeting with him. I've chatted with him very briefly offline. I've checked out some of his work. I am really, really impressed by it, and I like it. And I think you will too. G.D. Fenderson is a storyteller, as self-described certified forensic humorist. I didn't know he was certified. I mean, who's certifying this stuff anyway? You get a degree in this, certified forensic humorist. Certified forensic humorist is not just a pretentious title. He says that he gave himself. It's a made-up pretentious title that he's earned. He uses every comedic device at his disposal to discuss mature material in an immature manner, kind of like me, except I'm not funny. But I'm working on it. His jokes and short stories are ripped from the headlines and his life, and results in roaring laughter. Ladies and gentlemen, open your ears, open your minds, and help me welcome in G.D. Fenderson, certified forensic humorist. How are you? Good morning, and thanks for being here.
Hey, how's it going, Matt?
It's going well. So I've watched some. The storytelling I've seen. I haven't seen you like being like a joke guy. You're a storyteller, long form comedian. Yeah.
For the most part, that's what I'm told I am. It's funny. It's up to the audience to tell you who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
But the jokes are there, but because if I just told a story would be like 10 minutes long, and it's like a beginning and an end, but you have to move it along. And so I insert jokes in the middle of the stories to move it along. And so most people don't even realize they're jokes.
Right.
You know, they're laughing and they're enjoying the story, which means I've done my job.
Gotcha. Now, that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about. Because when you're starting out, first of all, you don't get enough time when you're very, very first starting out. You don't get enough time to do a full story, like a kind of story that you tell. If you're getting 3 minutes at an open mic night, that's you're not going to be able to tell that whole story. So how does that evolve? When you first started like your comedy career and you were going to open mic nights, I'm assuming that's how it started for you. That's how it starts for most people. Were you like pressured, or did you have another way? Were you more of a quick joke guy in the beginning? Tell me about the evolution of your what you do.
Essentially, I'm almost being forced to devolve or de-evolve because I was so stupid lucky in the beginning. I started comedy in Florida in at McCurdy's Comedy Theater in Sarasota, Florida. That's where I started. I went to a comedy boot camp, and once I got the bug, uh, like 2 weeks in, I decided I was going to write a 90-minute set. 2 weeks in, my goal was to write a 90-minute set because my point of reference was Christopher Titus. He was the only comedian that I actually knew, you know,
Wow.
and he did the 90-minute shows once a year. And so that was my goal, to write a 90-minute set. So I started writing right away. Well, it turns out also that the only open mics available to me were the mixed mics, which are like 10 to 12 minutes per person or per group. So if you're a band, you get 10 to 12, 15 minutes. And if you're a person, you can get 10 to 12, 15 minutes. Anyone who's ever sat with me for longer than 12 minutes, anyone sat with me longer than 5 minutes realizes that once my mouth opens, the stuff flows. So the hard part wasn't for me filling the 12 minutes that they gave me. The hard part was getting them to shut me up after 12 minutes. It's like, no, I got so much more. My friends will tell you that what you see on stage is just a version of me at a dinner table.
Wow.
That's it. That's how I talk naturally.
Titus is an interesting inspiration there. It's the first time I've heard anybody mention him as like somebody they knew before. Yeah, not new, but kind of their point of reference getting into the business. So that's an interesting one for me. I haven't seen much of him around. He used to be really vocal on Twitter until about a year ago. I think when Musk bought it is when he got off of Twitter. But he used to engage with people who had absolutely no
Yes, he did.
and get in fights with them, and I would be like, why are you wasting your time all day tweeting back and forth to somebody who's not even a fan and is not like somebody that anybody pays attention to? But so that's a interesting one.
Well, it
Now,
keeps you sharp. It keeps you sharp, and also you get to know how the other people think, because not everybody's going to think like you.
right.
And sometimes they are dragged into your audience by their spouse who may think like you.
Right.
so,
Yeah.
so you're going to encounter them, and this way, if they're in the audience and they're yelling, "You suck, Titus," he's like, oh, "Okay, look, I've talked to people like you all the time. I know how to deal with you, moron," or whatever he wants to call them. I'm not going to speak for him.
Right. Yeah.
We're not friends or married. I can't speak for him.
Okay. Well. Anyway, so how long ago was it that you got started?
I began doing comedy in September of 2014. Your audience can do the math. If they can't, I've been doing comedy for 9 years.
Wow.
Would it be 9 years in September if they can't do the math? I'm assuming your audience is very intelligent and they can do math.
They're big comedy fans, but the only question is how long does it take? Because some people, there are very few people pop really quick. I mean, Freddie Prinze comes to mind, Eddie Murphy comes to mind, people who pop really quick. But generally, like Mark Norman is kind of peaking now in the stand-up comedy world. People don't realize he's been doing it for almost 20 years, like 17, 18 years.
Yes.
And that's a long now, because I saw you on the cover of your Facebook page, you're with a guitar in front of many amps, and I'm assuming you have some experience as a musician as well, or is that a bad assumption to make?
No, I as a matter of fact, I do song parodies as well. That's as a matter of fact, right now as we speak, because I have 3 comedy specials on YouTube, and I'm writing 2 different ones at the same time right now. One of them will be called Psych Comedy 102, Shoulda, Coulda, Woulda, Told That Joke. And the other one is called the Karaoke Joke Book. And it's going to be me performing many of my song parodies, to the live audience.
Okay, song parody. But so I was going to ask you why I brought up the music early here is that the time it takes to get paid as a comedian versus the time it takes to get paid as a musician, very different. Like a comedian, you're basically not going to make any money for sometimes years. Musicians, I was 13 years old when I got my first real payday as a musician. It's like 3 weeks into gigging, so it's a it's a big difference in when you get paid, and so a lot of people, who get into comedy also have this idea of stardom in their mind, and that's a real disappointing thing and a tough thing to get through your head that it's going to take forever. I had saw a guy post on Facebook the other day that he'd been doing it for 3 years and he's still doing open mics and getting like 3 or 5 minutes. I was like 20 years, and I was like, well, at this point, I would be not to be a dream crusher, but I would be considering giving it up if you're still just doing open mics and not getting paid after 20 years. But frustration with the time it takes to actually get respect and get paid for what you do as a comedian or as a
Well,
forensic humorist.
I started when I was 54 years old. Well, 54 years and 10 months.
Wow.
And I knew that in reality, it would take 15 to 20 years to become, quote, famous. If the normal tracks, the normal procedure take 15 to 20 years. And so I never thought that I would be famous before I was dead. So
Yeah.
at this moment, what I'm doing is I'm what I'm calling documenting my funny. I know I'm funny. A lot of people know I'm funny, but the world will not know I'm funny until I've lost my mind and I can no longer be funny. So I'm documenting all of that stuff right now so that when the time comes, when someone goes, oh my God, this guy's funny, I can sit back with them and enjoy new material because I will have forgotten all of it. I will go, who is that man? He looks familiar. Lord have mercy. I love his hair. Oh,
That's good stuff. Listen,
hair.
documenting your funny, I think it's important, and people, because I've been with the band I'm with, I've been taking 3 or 4 cameras with me since the beginning, 25 years, and people used to say, "Why are you taping all this stuff? What are you doing with all this stuff?" And I was like, "Just so I have proof that I actually did it."
Yes. I remember back. I used to play in a band. The band I used to play in, well, it was Modern Ideal. And the CD I have is with a group called Urban Poets Society. We're actually the same people. It's just that we broke up and got back together for this CD. And when we were recording in the studio back in the 80s, the engineer looked at us and said, oh my God, you guys are good. You would be famous if one of you guys were dead. And we all looked at the same person.
Yeah, I get that.
And I'm not going to say who because we're all still friends.
I know. But I could imagine that. I'm just thinking, in my case, it probably would be me.
I was going to ask you. Yeah. I was going to ask you who in your band would have to die so that y'all could be famous, and would they make the sacrifice?
Here's the thing: when I was a young person, everybody bet on me being the first one to die. I mean, it was just a given that I would die young. Now all my friends are dead. And I'm the only one really. All the people I was friends with when I was young are now long gone, and so it's kind of funny that the one who we expected to die first, me, is still here. But forensic humorist, because I was thinking about that title. I like it, but I think we all start out as with forensics in a way of taking apart and analyzing whatever the art form is, and I like it on that because no matter who we are, we have to take our influences from somebody else, and we have to say what makes them funny, what makes them musical, what makes them a good actor, whatever it is, and kind of dissect it. Is that the intent behind that phrase that you made up and earned?
The intent was that I don't know if there was a comedian, I can't remember his name now, and he used to have a regular spot on the Today Show, and his job was to be in the third chair and do commentary on the news stories. So they do like two legitimate news people talk about something, and then he'd have the comedic version. And I thought to myself, that's the job I want. But when he did his name, they did his name and said comedian. And I'm
Right.
like, I want his job. I don't want comedian. That sounds so degrading considering what you're actually doing. You actually have to know the news. And so I decided on a whim, literally on a whim, that I would be called a certified forensic humorist. And the word humorist came first. And the certified, I think, was the second word. And forensic was thesaurus moment, not catharsis for those of you, but a thesaurus. It was thesaurus moment. I had to
Yeah.
go through like, okay, I love forensic. And everybody loves forensics. If you put forensics in the title, they'll watch it.
Well, that's true. I mean, true crime is the #1 genre in the world, and forensics comes from that, forensic pathology stuff, and
Yes.
that's part of my background, by the way.
Oh,
But
cool.
that's pretty interesting stuff. But I think on some level, I think a lot of people, young people today, getting into whatever creative arts, they forget the part about studying the art form that came before you, or those that came before you in whatever art form that you're creating. I have a question. Did you, speaking of morbidity and stuff like that, did you create your own urn in
Oh,
in thinking about dying in advance? Did you buy an urn for yourself?
I bought the urn when I was in my 20s. 20s or 30s. I mean, by that time, I had a suspicion that I was not going to get out of life alive. I kind of thought that I would. I kind of suspected by then that in the end I was going to die. It was just I bought, so it was the urn was an investment. I wasn't sure if I was going to die, but in the event that I did, I bought my urn at a reasonable price. Because if I had that thing made in today's dollars, it would be like a few $1,000s.
Yeah,
So it
it's
was an
it.
investment. It was an investment in my death.
Now that was custom made by
Yes.
clay pottery person or something like
Yes.
that. Did
Yes.
you have to sit for it? For
Yes.
people who don't know, look at the SOGDfunny.com, and there's pictures of it. 101 uses for the urn, but it's a piece of art.
Yes, it is.
You had to sit for it like a model.
I had to have my face mold. I had to. They put plaster of Paris on my face, uh, and I just sit there for like 15, 20 minutes. As a matter of fact, now I did design the urn myself. I designed it myself. The front, the back, the. So I designed everything, and the artist made it for me. And I say the artist, and I feel awful because literally after, let's say I'm 60. So I've had that urn for about 40 years. I've forgotten the artist's name. And I still
Wow.
have the box that she shipped it to me in, but her name is not on the box. And neither is the company's name. It just says fragile on the outside. So it probably had like a label that over the years just wore off.
All right. Are you nervous about damaging it? Because it's it is kind of a sacred heirloom, even though it's not being used for you right now. But I would be. I mean, I know you're taking pictures and taking it out of the house and taking photographs with it. I'd be nervous every time I took it out. Like it's
I'm terrified. As a matter of fact, I broke it once and I had to repair it. I repaired it. I had a bit. I did called uh, can't remember what it's called now, but basically I did my own funeral, and the urn was me in the ashes, and I portrayed the minister, Dr. Reverend Jelly Roll, and I was presiding over my own funeral, and I also played the mourners. So I put on a wig or so forth. I'd be my mother, my grandmother, my relatives mourning me. So I did that routine, and while I was doing the open mics, because that's the other thing. Again, I'm a storyteller. That routine is like 15, 20 minutes long. Nobody's giving me 15 to 20 minutes unless I schmooze a little and I said, please, can I have like 10 to 12 minutes? And usually it's at the end. And if it's funny, they just forget about the clock. And that's how I got to rehearse it. So I had the urn and I was ready to go out. And the lid fell on the floor, bounced up, and struck the urn and broke the handle, broke one of
Oh,
the handles. And I thought to myself, first of all, that is so weird that the lid hit the floor and didn't break, but it bounces up and breaks the urn by the handle. And I said, I don't. So I'm about to go on. In about 5 minutes, I temporarily glued the urn back together because kept crazy glue with me. I was a Boy Scout, and so I carried the urn like this because you could carry it by the handles. Not
right,
anymore because the handle's been compromised.
right.
But so I had broken it. But now I'm just so freaking careful. I don't pull it out unless I'm. It's like my penis. It's fragile, and it's at that stage where I only pull it out if it's absolutely going to be used. That's it. If it's not going to be used, it stays wrapped up in foam.
Well, it is like a penis. Now you've inspired me that maybe I should have mine designed in the shape of a penis. That would be cool. Um, when my mom died, I had a gig, and I had to pick up her ashes on the way to a gig. And so I brought her, and she never came to see me play. So it was a solo gig, a solo acoustic gig, and I brought her in the urn, and I put the urn up on the bar, and I was playing the gig, and somebody went to put their ashes in it. I'm like, no, that's my mom. Interesting stuff. That's kind of so. Has mortality always been like do you dwell on that kind of thought, and is it part of your comedy?
It is part of my comedy. I've addressed my death. I've addressed the death of my mom, my father, my stepfather, my sister. As a matter of fact, in the event that someone wants to hear me talk about some of those, the second DVD or the second show is called The Disillusionist. And part of the disillusionist part of the disillusion is that most people don't think about death, but we're all going to die. And
Right.
so that was a big part of that particular one. And my sister, I had the opportunity to pull the plug on her because
Wow.
I was the youngest. Not because I was the youngest, but I was the youngest child. And my sister used to torture me because that was her job as the eldest. So I hold no grudges against her. And people said, "Well, no, I didn't hold a grudge." But she was in the hospital in a coma, and the doctor told my mother, "Is like, she's not going to survive. You're going to have to make a decision." And my mother says, "I can't do this. I can't kill my baby. She was my firstborn. I can't kill her." And I said, "Mom, nobody, no mother, no parent should ever have to do this. I'll pull the plug." And
Wow.
everybody thought I was doing it because I was mad at her.
Yeah. 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 You know. No.
You're getting your revenge. It's like, no, it's not revenge.
Yeah. Well, I totally get what you're saying now, but I do believe that the youngest has to take on the tough things. I'm the youngest, and when the shit hits the fan in family life, the youngest child always is the one to step up. Once they're into adulthood, it's like it. They lean on the youngest for some reason. And there's a whole lot of what goes into that, but I definitely that
You want to know the
study.
real reason? I'll tell you the real reason.
What?
You're the youngest. So a lot of things happened in the family before you came along. So, and when you were very, very young, they have your memories. Like you don't remember your first year, the first 2 years of life. You don't remember. You have like maybe glimpses, but
Right.
they have stored your memories and they have told you what your life is.
Right.
Once they're gone, you are now the holder of the truth. So they have to like rely on you to, hey, look, hey, Matt, when I'm gone, you're not going to tell people about the time that we were like kids and it's like, you're like, hey, no, not only am I telling it, but I'm telling a new version that you're not even going to know about until after you're gone. That's it. So,
Wow.
you better hope that you can reach me afterwards. Otherwise, this is the version that's going out.
No, I get it. All my family is gone except for my older brother, who is. He has friends who listen to the program, and they have told him what I've said about him. And I get phone calls like, "What? What are you telling that story for? How dare you got people thinking I'm a criminal?" Well, you were when you were a kid,
Yeah, same
50,
here.
60 years ago, whatever it was. But so yeah, all that but that definitely resonates with me. I think you're right about all that stuff. Now, you do long show, 90 minutes, 100, 128 minutes, whatever.
Yeah. Yes.
Um, Comedy clubs generally, that's not the norm. I mean, basically, an hour is the headliner spot in the hour or less. How are you? Is the business of booking? I'm assuming you're booking yourself, or do you have an agent?
I do not have an agent. I'm looking for an agent, but the agent, getting an agent is almost like getting credit in the beginning. To get
Right.
an agent, you have to know someone who has an agent to get you an agent.
Yeah.
And so, and a lot of the people that I know who have agents, I do have some friends that are professional that have agents. I don't want to put them in a position to be my reference. I know that sounds weird, because if I was doing a regular job and I needed 3 references, I'd call my friends and say, "Hey, guy, I need a reference." They'd be like, "Sure,
Right.
sure." But these are professionals who, some of them actually might, the smart and intelligent ones do not view me as competition. But there are other ones. There's some that I reached out to. As soon as I reached out to them and said, "Look, I need a hello, hey, blocked
Yeah.
again." This is the third one this week. I guess I'll stop asking my friends for help.
Right. Yeah. So how do you create opportunities for yourself? Because those kind of shows that you're doing, it's not the typical like go in and see if I can get booked at a date. You're doing community colleges and theaters and whatever kind of places you're playing. How do you create those opportunities? I'm sure a lot of people in the audience, their ears just perked up. Yeah, I want to know how to do that. How do you do
Well,
that?
before COVID, it was easier because COVID wiped out a lot of the smaller venues. Well, shouldn't say COVID. Ignorant people wiped out a lot of the smaller venues that I used to be able to do those things at. Uh, but what I would do, and I still do, is uh, for the actual recordings of the DVDs, I just book a theater. But to rehearse them, like I said, to rehearse the 90-minute spots, I reach out to small venues that will hold, 20 to 30 people, 40 people. And I will say to them, "I'm working on a DVD. I will do a show for free. You know, I will do the show for free. 90 minutes." I said, "You can check out my comedy, and I will do the show for free. And as a matter of fact, I'll do 2 or 3 back to back to back for free. For you and your audience. That's it. And the ones that bite, that's where I will perform.
Wow.
So when I was rehearsing the 90-minute sets, because it's not, to me, it's not about, again, I have a different motive. I'm not trying to get, quote, paid and famous. I don't believe I have that shot. Not in a normal run of events.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your being realistic about the chances of that. But I'm seeing more and more older people break through and do some big things. So it's not like I don't think you definitely have no shot at that. And I'm glad that that's not your goal, because I think in too many instances we're seeing people. I'm seeing them, especially in younger people. The idea is fame and money, and that's why they're in it. They're not in it for the love of the art form. And I think if you approach it from that way, you're never going to be excellent. You're never going to reach, that place where your art is worth enough to be that people will celebrate you, to make you famous and rich, all that kind of stuff. If you're just focused on fame and fortune, that's a dead end street. So but I do think I've seen lots of people doing this, and all the people I've interviewed over the last 5 years or so, who have broken through 40s, 50s, and sometimes even 60s. So,
Yeah.
it's not,
Well, it's possible, but that's not my goal. So if it doesn't happen, I'm not going to be on my deathbed regretting it. Or,
right.
I'm not going to be like fighting my way into the urn going like, "No, no." It's like, that's not, no, I'm not, no, I'm not expecting it.
You got to
Uh,
earn it.
yeah.
um, Now you're situated in Delaware. Is that where you are? Maryland? Where are you?
Maryland. Yeah. Westminster, Maryland.
Maryland. So opportunities in that area. I don't. You know what? I probably spent less than a couple of hours in Maryland my entire life. Sometimes hotel rooms around D.C. area, but I don't. It's one of those states I drive through. I've never really spent a whole lot of time there. A lot of opportunity for comedy.
Yes and no. and this is going to piss people off, but the ones that were pissed off weren't going to book me anyway.
Right.
Maryland, the comedy scene in Maryland is very, very cliquish. Now, I can't speak for everywhere. I've only performed in it's on my bucket list to perform in all 50 states. So again, if you're listening and watching and you want me, just assume I haven't been to your state and book me. Don't go to say, well, has he been here? Don't worry about that. Just book me. And if it make you feel better, I'll say, yes, you're my first time. Yeah, if it makes you feel better, I'll tell you it's my first. But otherwise, just book me. But in Maryland, you have to be like part of a clique.
Yeah.
You know, and it's very quick for people to look at me and they'll say, GD, man, you're great, you're hilarious. I gotta get you, I gotta book you. And I'll reach out once or twice, and that's it. They'll say, well, we gotta find somebody to put with you. It's like, forget it. I'm done. I'd rather sit back and do my own thing and wait for my opportunities than to water myself down to fit into their mold, because I'm never going to fit in their mold, and they're never going to be happy with me being me.
Right. Interesting, because I think you're right. I don't think it's restricted to Maryland. From my experience, and I've talked to comedians all over the world, the art form is cliquey by nature because it's the only art form where you're really a lone wolf. I mean, stand-up comedy. It's not, sketch comedy is different because you're part of a troupe and stuff. But you're doing stand-up, you're a lone wolf. And so being part of a pack or a clique gives you some kind of protection.
Yes, because they're insecure by nature.
Right.
Most comedians, and that's why I don't want to be called a comedian, because I think comedians are really screwed up, antisocial, screwed up people. As a general rule of thumb, they're needy, but it's almost like a psychologist going into field psychology to repair themselves.
Right.
I think comedy, I think most professions people go into to try to heal themselves from some damage. And I'm no different, except for I went through that healing process before I became a humorist.
Really? Because I'm still going through it. I mean, I think about this quite often. Like, why am I even doing this? And for best part of it is the therapy for me. I get to express ideas that and thoughts I have that people wouldn't say, if I was in a conversation with somebody, they'd probably get bored with me on my rants after 2 minutes and walk away or something. But here they're, pretty captive, and I don't really notice them walking away. So I just keep going and get things off my chest. So I think I'm still healing that. But I do think this idea of clickiness, it can be twofold. There's a negative side of it from the industry, in that people who get into a clique who aren't necessarily talented, skilled, or put the time into it. And I can bring up names, but I'm not going to. But they ride along on the coattails of the few in the clique who are really at the top of their game, and they get all this notoriety just from being part of that circle. And they're not very good, and I think it brings the entire art form down. Just your comments on that observation. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree, and also another issue is that a lot of times people think in order to be funny you have to be a comedian, and there's a whole world out there where you can be funny and not be, quote, a comedian. You can contribute to comedy without being. Now, for example, I contribute to a podcast, a political satire, left-leaning podcast, where we have to constantly writing like new bits and routines based on the news, and it's like a never-ending process. I get to be fun. I don't get the instant response. So if you care about the laughter and making you say, oh, the reassurance that you're funny, then that may not be for you. Because if you really need the laughter, you may not want to be a writer.
Yeah.
But if you want to be creative and work on your craft, you can write. So like I said, I write for Politipod. And if I could give a shout out to one showrunner who's been like very, very good to me, if that's okay. I don't want to like ruffle.
You can plug anything and everything you want on.
Oh, here's my butt plug. Then I'm going to show you. Here's my butt plug. I'm sorry, no, no. I
Well,
just want to
you
plug.
say that, but one of my sponsors is a non-toxic butt plug retailer. Because I don't know if you know this. I'm sorry to interrupt your flow here, but a lot of sex toys are made with this toxic material that is outlawed in children's toys, like all those kind of stuff that they said no, those chemicals can't be put into children's toys, but they still make them in sex toys. So you're putting stuff in your butt or wherever that is toxic. My sponsor, Entice Me, with an E, Entice Me. She sells only non-toxic butt plugs and dildos and things like that. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Oh, that's okay. Now, I guess, but if it's a single-use butt plug, it doesn't matter if it's toxic, right? So you could actually buy single-use butt plugs, and it doesn't matter what they're made of; they're not going to be there long enough.
I
Toxicity,
guess.
I'm just saying, toxicity is like repetitive things over and over and over again. But if you're an experimental one, if you're not a connoisseur of butt plugs, and this is your first time doing it, get a disposable one. So it doesn't matter what it's made out of, as long as it's what you're, as long as it expresses you.
I guess we went there.
no, I'm just saying, so, but when I'm not plugging my butt with my, no, I'm just when I'm not doing that, Ron, I would like to plug Ron Kane. No, when I'm not, so no, Ron Kane comedy. I want to plug Ron Kane comedy, not Ron Kane.
Right.
We're friends. We're good friends, but I don't want to plug him.
Okay.
We're both we're both married. We're both.
I get it. Yeah. Now, Reverend, what is Jelly Roll? Is that
Dr. Reverend Jelly Roll?
Now, did that get taken down? Because I thought I went looking for it and it was like offline. And that, what's the deal with? And what tell the audience what that really is?
Okay, my regular stage persona, G.D. Fenderson, certified forensic humorist, is somewhat of an erudite individual, but I'm also very married to a very nice woman who has a very good career on her own, and so I do curb my thoughts in some respects because I do not want to cast negatively upon her,
right?
Or hear the lectures about me casting negatively upon her.
Yeah.
But so G.D. Fenderson, as smart as he is, or smart as I am, I curb it. I do curb it. The Dr. Reverend Jelly Roll has his own family and wife, and he's very reverent, and he can say the things that I cannot say, and that's part of the reason why he's banned.
Yeah, my art has cost me relationships, and people stopped trusting me because everything that happened in my life ended up in song at one point, and people were like, you're not gonna write a song about this and talk about me on stage, are you? Does that your comedy and your art affect your relationship? You kind of alluded to your wife being a little hypersensitive to your jokes, but in general, in life, in a broader sense, does it affect your relationships with friends and family?
It has. When I started in 2014, my friends did not become aware of me. They didn't start seeing my shows until like 2015, and at that point, since a lot of the stuff I do is from the news and stuff, when I discussed politics, President Obama was the president. And so I did not realize how much of my base was conservative. The progressives could laugh at whatever I said about President Obama, but the conservatives took it as like a mantra. It's like, yes, he's an evil N-word, evil. And I didn't, so that they're passing butt plugs. But I didn't realize how much of my audience was like that. And then Trump became president. And when I continued the same observations of politics, I lost like 70% of my audience. I mean, I was watching friend after friend after friend on Facebook and YouTube. Just like I lost so much of my audience because they couldn't handle the truth,
right?
Or the jokes, or the
right.
jokey truths,
yeah,
truthy jokes. They couldn't take it, and so I lost almost all of my conservative base. I lost, but I wasn't going to change my comedy. I couldn't change what I did, which was talk about politics and life, because You know, if they wanted different jokes, have a different president. And what do you know? They gave me Biden.
Right.
So,
Well, you know, all my life, and you're about my age, and we have as long as I've been able to vote, and even predating when I first became aware in politics, we've always had the choice between the lesser of two evils. And I always say,
yes.
when are we going to get a choice of who's the two where it's so the choices are so good you can't decide because they're really good candidates. We've never had that. We've had I got to choose between bad and worse. It's constant, and I think we are seeing the results of that now. Politics in general, though, can be a really a powder keg. Uh,
Yes.
for me, I don't care. Yesterday, I went on a rant, and I said basically, if you Trump people hate me, I don't care. I have to say what I believe and what's on my mind. And if you're gonna hate me, hate me. I feel your hate coming to me, and I get lots of hate mail because of it. But I'm not gonna I'm not gonna lie and be inauthentic or try to hide what I'm truly feeling about it. It's a difficult
Right.
road to hoe. You have to. Do you care about keeping the numbers, or does that bother you that you lost half your base, or do you just
It only bothered me in the sense that people who booked shows and stuff made the mistake of looking at how many followers I had to find out how funny I was,
right?
or how, and that is that it's frustrating in the sense that that's like, if you're like, for example, if you're a woman out there and you went to college and you're a doctor and you got all A's on your exams, but the only thing they see is that you have C's on your chest, it's that kind of feeling.
Yeah, yeah,
Now I get the feeling that they're looking at my chest to see if I got the C's as opposed to if I can do the work,
right.
And
Too much of that where people are getting, first of all, you can buy. I wasn't even aware that people were doing this in order to get booked. They buy like fake bot followers to present to club owners and say, "Look, I have
yes,
50,000 followers," and
yes.
then they're not real. And then they say, "Well, how many people can you bring to the club?" Well, I can't guarantee any of them. And they do a show and nobody shows up. Well, you got 50,000 followers, not one person shows up. I'm assuming they're all
Yeah,
fake.
and that's the other thing. I had friends in the comedy business. And I look and I said, wait a minute, how'd you get 1 million followers? And they tell me they bought them. I'm like, well, I'm not doing that
Yeah,
because the whole point of me being certified and forensic is being genuine.
right.
And I can't be genuine if I'm lying about how many followers I have. It's like, no, I have 12 followers. I have 102 followers. That's
Yeah,
eventually, and not only that, you could have like I could have like I could have like 1 billion legitimate followers, but if they're all in Bangladesh,
right.
they're not coming to New York to see me.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah.
They're not. They're like, oh, Mr. Fenderson is very funny. Let's all get on Delta and fly to see him. That's not the stuff's happening. He's a good he's a certified forensic humorist, just like Mama used to make. So no. If they're all over the world, they're not coming to see you in that little club in Poughkeepsie or whatever.
Absolutely. And I've talked to major headliners who grappled with this idea where you play in places that's like South Dakota or something, and where the towns are really small towns. And listen, no matter how much I love a comedian, I'm not driving 6, 8, 10 hours to go to see a show because they're in a small town. If they're
Yes.
local to me, even in local people, I mean, there's no clubs or places where I can go to see comedy within an hour in any direction here. So if that's an hour drive, that's fine. 2 hours is even okay. But when it comes to 6, 8, 10 hours, forget about it. I know I have friends who will drive that far for comedy, but not me. I'm too open.
Yeah. Now
Yeah,
I will drive that far to see a friend of mine.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
literally, a friend of mine says, GD, I'm doing a show in Tennessee. It would mean a lot for you to be in the audience. First of all, I'd question their sanity if it meant that much, or maybe they just needed a ride, and that was their way of asking. It's like, GD, I have a gig in Tennessee. It would mean a lot for me if you would be there. Oh, and can I catch a ride?
Yeah.
Uh, so,
No, I used to love that, and when I was young, anyway, the open road, just to take a gig 10 hours away, just for that experience, for the open
Yes.
road of it. But as you get older, that wears off. Um, but coming back to the idea of followers, fame, and all this stuff, somebody on Twitter challenged Roseanne Barr to a debate. And she replied, "Why would I debate you? You're not even famous. You're just trying to gain notoriety over having me." And she was very open about the fact that his fame was the reason she was, or lack of fame was the reason she was discounting him as even worth talking to. And I thought, wow, that is so shallow, so. But that is the state of our culture, right? We judge people on how popular they are and how many followers they are and how many friends they have on Facebook or whatever. It's just crazy how that's our value system in
Yes.
judging people, not just entertainers, but people. And she thought this guy was not even worth talking to because he only had like 10,000 followers and she's got 1 million or whatever. It's a sad commentary on where we are as human beings. It just because there's no, when we talk about politics, you can't judge the quality of the conversation and the input and the ideas that person might have that can really be worth listening to by the number of sometimes people with the least followers are the ones who have the ideas that piss people off, that
Yes.
are willing to take chances and push the boundaries and think outside the box. Those people have Tesla. Tesla lived right around the corner. Nobody liked him. He had no friends, no family. He was totally antisocial. So,
Yeah.
uh,
But he did good work.
yeah, he did. He
I
did.
think he had like I was gonna say Edison. Was Edison one of Tesla's friends? Like the number of friends he had were like 3 or 4, but
Right.
they were wealthy.
Yeah. J.P. Morgan was basically the closest relationship he had, but Morgan was always about financing him, and
Yeah.
Tesla wasn't really interested in money, which is a total unusual thing in the human condition, to not really care about money. Like, yeah, I don't want to know about it. I don't want to. He was friends with pigeons. Very
Yeah.
weird, dude. Very
Yeah,
weird, dude.
because the pigeons didn't care about the money. They were happy with the crumbs.
Right.
They were
Yeah.
like him. They were happy with the crumbs.
Absolutely. So your podcast, what do you? And I'm told I'm going to be on your podcast one day.
Yes.
What is the name of it? Where can it be found?
Okay, Done Way Past Funny is what it's called. It's a interview show, and it is on YouTube. It is on Knob TV, which is on Roku, KNOB TV, and it is also going to be on Spark TV. And I say going to be because they said yes, and now I have to format and send my stuff, the previous shows. The thing is,
Right.
I have like 57 episodes or so, maybe 60, I think, episodes. They each one's a half an hour. Because what it is like when we do our interview,
Right.
you're free to talk as long as you want. If you want to talk for half an hour, fine. If we can talk for like 2 hours, that's great. But it'll be edited up into 30-minute segments.
Right.
And also we'll edit in any like if you talk about one of your influences, let's say, because I see you're a musician, so I'm just going to assume that one of your influences is Picasso, and you talk about I'm just saying, but you mentioned a musician as an influence. I will find whatever I can on that and then put the graphic up so people have a point of reference.
Very cool.
And
Cool stuff. Yeah.
yes, and basically it discusses the business of the experience of people's of their business, of their experience in the business of comedy. Like, it's because not everybody who does comedy or involved in comedy is a comedian. Some people are writers, some are actors, some are DJs and MCs. Like in your case, you're involved in comedy, even if you're not a comedian. And we'll get to talk about your music too.
That's funny because on my YouTube channel, it used to say humorist, because
Right.
I did not want to call myself a comedian because I feel like you have to be doing stand up to call yourself a comedian. And
Yeah.
that's not always true, because a lot of people who are just actors, comedic actors called themselves comedians. Like Bob
Yes.
Hope called himself a comedian. Basically, I don't think he did stand up. Oh, I guess he did.
Yeah,
He
he
did
did the
monologue.
USO tours and stuff in
Yeah,
his TV specials.
right. Yeah.
But
Uh,
even the TV specials had sketch comedy.
right. But so the business of comedy has changed so much because I have interviewed older cats who've been in the game for ever 50 years or so, and and new people, and
Yes.
the business of stand-up comedy and or comedy in general has changed so drastically that I feel like some of the legends I've talked to are kind of out of touch with and don't really offer that much of value to young people who are looking to them to say, what can they teach me about the business? They're really, because the business is not the same as it was even 5, 10 years ago, right?
Oh
So,
yeah, right.
uh,
I would love to sit down and pick the brains of people who are in the business of comedy, which is why I do the show as well. I
right,
figured if I have questions, there are other comedians, other people who have questions, and they'll tune in to hopefully get some answers. Not all the answers, because not all the answers are in one place.
right. Um, so how often are you doing the podcast? It comes out. Do you publish on a given day, like a steady, every Friday or something like that, or
What I do is like for example, I'll do the interviews for the month of July are done. I've done all those interviews, and I will be editing them down over the next few days, and I will release them during the first week of August.
right?
And I'll really so the first week of August I may release. I was releasing on average of like 16 episodes a month, but I was doing it all at once. So if you could binge watch, you could binge watch. If you want to see one at a time, you can see one at a time.
Very cool. No interest in doing it live like we're doing right now.
It's just that I don't have the staff to do that
I don't either.
because, well, and the reason I said is because if we're talking and you said, and let's say you said, Walter Cronkite, and people are like, Walter Cronkite. Well, since my show is pre-recorded, I can Google Walter Cronkite, put up a
Right,
picture,
right,
and say Walter Cronkite, CBS News anchor or something like that.
right.
I couldn't do that live because I'd have to have a staff going, wait a minute, Walter Cronkite, is he that guy? And it couldn't do it.
Yeah, if you just say something like that, absolutely. If you do it off the cuff, but I hear that. But also, I do repurpose stuff, and when I'm doing shorts, I will do kind of editing to the stuff. So take a long form thing, take that 10-minute piece where you said something really valuable, and then show some graphics that will support what we were talking about in that time. So I think you can do both. But listen, I just love. And I'm not saying you should do this. I'm just saying I love working without a net. I love the feeling of live. For some reason, my energy is different. Even if in the back of my head, I'm gonna use it and just put it up like as if it were a live conversation. The energy for me, I know it's being taped, and I know there's a safety net there, and it takes away this whole. I'm nervous about the next interview I'm going to do this morning because it's a former Border Patrol agent who loves Donald Trump. I mean,
And I
deeply.
really wish I could be part of that conversation. I'd love to, but
I would love you to stick around so I can hide behind you. Yeah.
that's part of what I do is like politics. I mean, I kid you not. I'm working with Politipod. We have taken the indictment and the superseding indictment. Well, the superseding indictment, we're working on that right now. We recorded us reading the actual indictment,
Right.
pretty much word for word, except for maybe a goof once in a while. And then our comedic commentary, like after a certain part of the indictment, there will be like, let's say there will be paragraph 97G. And then if we have jokes on it, we'll do the jokes on it. Now, the Dr. Reverend Jelly Roll has read the entire indictment for the audience who want it without commentary. For people who really want to hear the indictment, but not hear anybody else's opinion, just what the indictment says, the Dr. Reverend Jelly Roll read it, right off the thing. It's boring, but it's just like almost like an hour and 20 minutes long to read. but that's why people don't read it.
Right.
But if you want to listen to it, you can listen to it. So
Interesting. Hey, listen, no pressure here. But if you do
sure.
want to hang around, you're welcome to hang around for that interview and interject or give your thoughts on it. I'm not serious about wanting to hide behind you. I think I'm prepared to do the interview. But if you want to be part of it and have some thoughts to interject, you're welcome to. I'm no pressure. You don't have to. But
I'll tell you what, I will stick around as long as he's okay with it. Because when he agreed to do it, he probably agreed to do it and
he
talk
doesn't.
with
I don't
you.
think he knows anything about me. This is the kind of interesting thing. A lot of these authors, they have publicists reach out to me, and they've never watched the show, and I know they've never watched the show or listened to it, and don't know anything about what I'm about. And then it becomes apparent, and so the power dynamic is that I've done my research on them. I know who they are. I know what they're going. I don't think he even knows that how the disdain I have for Donald Trump as a person. Going long 40 years, my relationship with him of not liking him goes back 40 years, long before he became
Oh, that's right,
involved in
because you're
politics.
a New Yorker.
Yeah,
See, I have family in New York, and they have a totally different perspective of
yeah,
what he's like,
yeah.
and as
I
opposed
have
to
people
people who
who
only
worked
know him
for
from The
him.
Apprentice.
I
Yeah.
have friends who've worked for him. My brother actually worked for him briefly when he was a young man. And most of my friends who worked for him were criminals. Seriously,
Yeah.
lower level mob connected people, because in this construction business in New York,
Oh
if
yeah.
you're involved in that in any way, you touch the mob whether you want to or not, or get touched by it.
Yeah.
So
It's like chlamydia in a rundown neighborhood.
yeah,
You know?
exactly, exactly. Oh, by the way, we're gonna go there. Do you know about leprosy in Florida?
My wife was just telling me about that. My wife works for the Department of Health, and so she's up on diseases and stuff like that. So yeah, she's we're just. I was wondering whether or not that. I hate to say this, but the person that um, DeSantis put in charge of his health was that I can't remember the black guy's name,
Right?
and I
Yeah,
don't
I
want
don't.
to call him the black guy, but I don't. I assume he identifies as stupid,
Yeah.
and he just happens to be black. I don't know how he identifies, and I don't know his name, but I'm assuming that guy is just finding out about the malaria the same time you are. Like I'm
Right.
saying, he's like, wait a minute, malaria in Florida
Yeah.
for how long? A
Well,
week. I'm
leprosy in
sorry. Yeah,
Florida.
leprosy. Yeah, that's it.
Right.
Leprosy.
And
That
Becky,
too.
who is in Tampa, I believe Tampa area or St. Petersburg area, she's saying, "What's up with leprosy in Florida?" In South Florida, there is an outbreak of leprosy now.
Yeah.
Because I just found out about it, and I did fact check it. When I first heard it, I was like, "That's got to be bullshit." And then I did a fact check on it, and it's real. Uh, but leprosy is a biblical disease. The only treatment for that was to take people and isolate them. We think the lockdowns from coronavirus were tough. Imagine trying to take people and saying we're going to separate you from family and friends. You are going to live in a colony now until we get this thing isolated. That would be a tremendous just social bomb ready to go off.
Yeah, but
But
on the other hand, it is South Florida, so I say cruise ships.
yeah. Well, they say it's from armadillos. Now, the health warning was don't go near armadillos, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?
They're so cute.
Armadillos are like rats in armor. I wouldn't go near an armadillo anyway. They look like an armored tank on a rat. Why
But
would anybody go near an armadillo?
but we're talking about the human species. The
Yeah,
human species. These are the ones who, like people in Arizona, are standing in line to take a picture next to an LCD display that says temperature is 132
yeah,
Fahrenheit, and then the guy getting angry because it's starting to cool off, and he has to take his picture next to 131. It's like, oh, son of a bitch! It was 132 half an hour ago. Those sons of bitches. Now I
yeah.
gotta take a picture. I'm not. And in the meanwhile, they all left their kids and dogs in the cars while they could take the picture. And there's like, I got my picture next to 132, and the dog is going like, yeah, it's 160 in the car. Take your fucking picture. I'm sorry, take your picture in here.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want on here.
Okay, cool. Picture. Dog.
Yeah. So yeah, and it's just crazy that I read those stories and I'm like, this can't be true, and then I fact checked it and then find out, yeah, leprosy is making a comeback, and that's a scary thing. I mean, you mentioned chlamydia. I mean, chlamydia is. I remember like when things started getting real. Because when I was a kid, and I'm sure you remember this, VD was something you could get a shot for and get it taken care of. Now, everything that's transmissible there's no cure for it, and there's no treatment for it. And if you get it, it's like highly contagious. And if you get it, you're doomed. It's like,
yes,
well,
and there's also embarrassed.
Yeah.
If you got syphilis or gonorrhea or any of the treatable diseases, you were embarrassed. You were embarrassed to have it. You were embarrassed to pass it along.
Right.
But now, like, they have groups on Facebook and YouTube. It's like, join the chlamydia
community.
Yes, that community, that club, chlamydia club. Yes, that's
Chlamydia. Say, have you chlamydia?
No, chlamydia the tag. She has eyes that win a torso, and a torso even more so. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Google Marx Brothers, kids.
So, just to give you a little preparation here, the interview that is coming up, the guy's name is J.J. Carroll. He was
Could you spell the last name? J.J.
Carroll, Carrell. And he was a deputy in charge of the San Diego area for, and he says his book, it says, what does it say? The intentional destruction of American immigration system, and he says that Joe Biden is intentionally destroying America. And this is the like. I'm not a big Biden fan. I've never been a fan of any politician.
Right.
But I want to know, like, where's the proof that this is intentional? Can it be that maybe it's just a different idea on how to fix a broken system, rather than I hate America and I'm going to try to destroy America intentionally and see if I can slip that past the American people?
See, now, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, it's just that, he's wrong for blaming Biden. But he's right that the breaking of it was intentional, but it wasn't Biden that did it. It's more like corporations that did it.
Right.
Because they think about it, corporations have loved cheap labor since slavery and before. It's like, give us cheap labor. We don't care how we get it.
Exactly. And not just corporations, even homeowners because here, I have a lot, and the Trump supporters have said this to me, like when we're doing yard work. Why don't you just go down to Home Depot and get a Mexican? Now, they're not Mexican. They're Guatemalans and Nicaraguans and all that kind of stuff, but they just call them Mexicans. Well, why don't you go down to where they congregate, the 7-Eleven or the Home Depot, and grab yourself a Mexican, cheap labor to do the work in your yard, because they do great work cheaply. And so when we come down, and this is part of the discussion here, is supply and demand. We can bitch about it all day long, but if we enabling it and using it, then we are part of the problem.
Right. If the people that keep, and I get in trouble when I use this comparison, because I'm not comparing people to pests, but living creatures will go where there's resources. Okay. If you have snakes, it's because you have mice. If you want to get rid of the snakes, you get rid of the mice. If I had, if my relatives were staying at my house and I didn't want them to stay, get rid of the liquor, the relatives go.
Right.
Okay. The same thing.
Exactly.
The same thing. Yes. So if you don't want the people to come here, whatever it is they're coming here for, get rid of that. The thing is, they're coming here for jobs. And a lot of restaurants, the farms and stuff, American people do not realize how much stuff would cost without immigrant labor.
Right.
They have no idea. And the worst part is like in Florida, there was a move to raise the price of to raise the price of tomatoes 1 cent a pound, and that penny would go to the migrant workers. It's like 2/3 of the markets were like, no, we're not, no, not a penny a pound. No, we won't do it.
Wow.
It's like, yeah, a penny a pound. When
Penny.
tomatoes are probably like a $1.05 a pound anyway at that time.
And
point.
also, you got to take a penny, give a penny thing.
yeah. It's like take a migrant, give a migrant. Yeah, I've seen that.
Well, my guest has arrived, so I'm going to play a quick commercial, and we'll come back in a minute to meet him. And this should be a really interesting conversation for us.
Cool.
Stick around for 1 minute while TrueFire is the greatest place online to learn guitar. If you're serious about learning guitar, if you're just beginning, if you're intermediate, or even if you're already a very seasoned professional player, TrueFire can help you improve your craft. Invite musicality with TrueFire. We'll be right back.
Over 2 million guitar players worldwide learn, practice, and play with TrueFire. Our learning tools and massive library of video lessons will ignite your technical skills, harmonic knowledge, rhythm playing, and soloing chops. TrueFire's educators are the best in the biz, from Grammy Award winners to world-renowned artists. You'll have access to an unparalleled faculty of over 300 top-notch blues, rock, jazz, country, fingerstyle, and acoustic guitar educators. Using our desktop and mobile apps, you'll work with TrueFire's multi-angle video lessons on any device, anytime, anywhere. Integrated learning tools such as video synced tab and notation, slow-mo, looping, practice jam tracks, and many more handy controls accelerate your learning experience. TrueFire style-specific learning paths guide you every step of the way. Use our assessment tools to find your starting point, then follow our lesson recommendations and track your progress as you work through your personalized TrueFire study plan. Progress faster with private one-on-one instruction, group lessons, multi-track video jams, live streams, song lessons, student forums, TrueFire's Riff magazine, premium jam tracks, and much, much more. With thousands of 5-star ratings and reviews from amateur and pro players alike, you'll find yourself in good company with the world's most comprehensive guitar learning platform. Grab your guitar and ignite your musicality. Sign up free for an all-access trial today.
Oh, yeah. Invite musicality. Whatever the hell that means, do it. Go to TrueFire.com. Make sure you use the promo code MINDDOG when you're signing up for there, and they're going to get the first month absolutely free. It's a very cool deal, and you get to learn a new instrument. To follow GD, go to SoGDFunny.com. We're going to shift from comedy to politics here, and just for general information here, people think this is a joke. It is no joke. I am running for Congress in 2024 in New York's District 3, the seat that is now held by George Santos. I am running as an independent, and my platform can be heard on the most recent Conversations with Don Sills on of all places, govscomedy.com. You can see that interview where I lay it out. Last week, I did a piece where the 2 reasons I am running for Congress. And so I am a pure independent. And let's be clear here, because I have a feeling my guest, who is unapologetic patriot, would probably think I was a radical leftist, as everybody who is not fully in on the Republican side must be a radical leftist now. I am a centrist. I believe the problem in America with the 2-party system has been that we are limited with the illusion of choice. And the problem here with eliminating the 2-party system is going down is not the option. In other words, a one-party system is the worst thing that, and there are examples of this throughout history. With one party in charge, we are far worse than two parties. I think we need more choices and more people who are willing to break party line affiliations and all that kind of stuff. My guest today is going to give us some perspective on the border and immigration policy, part of that discussion within politics. J.J. Carroll is a retired Border Patrol agent, a deputy patrol agent in charge of San Diego sector. He has a unique perspective on what he calls the intentional destruction of the American immigration system that is occurring right now on the border. His perspective comes from being a frontline journeyman agent, task force supervisor, and senior leader in Border Patrol. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome J.J. Carroll to Coffee with the Dog. J.J., welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate that. And congratulations on running. And just so you were clear, I'm absolutely agree with you. We are looking at a government that is basically a uniparty. We have no choices, and they align themselves constantly on different sides, but they align themselves with the ultimate goal of making accumulating more power and wealth for themselves. So I applaud you for running as an independent.
Thank you. I want to introduce you to G.D. Fenderson, who is a comedian. I just met this morning. He's actually not a comedian. He's a certified forensic humorist, similar to a comedian, but a little different. But he does a political podcast, and I've invited him to stay on this to get some of his perspective. He has already agreed with the idea of intentional destruction, and I'd like to talk about that quote in a moment. But if you could, can you explain the mission of Border Patrol as it's laid out? Is there a mission statement that you're aware? I'm sure if there is, you're aware of it, and what exactly it is.
The mission statement is very clear. We secure the border and protect the sovereignty of America. It's really that clean and cut. However, when you look at what's happening on the border today, the issue of it and the complexities are so layered that people think that the solutions have to mirror the problem, and they don't. The solutions are very clean, very easy to put into practice. President Trump did that. No one has to like President Trump. I do. I think he's the greatest border president in my 24-year career because he shut the border down. We were within 9 months of having the border completely secure. So when you ask me, and you're going to talk about this later about the intentionality of it, and I will lay it out as I did in my book, Invaded, and lay out the intentionality of it. And then once I lay that out, my question I ask anybody that has a debate with me is, if you disagree with the intentionality of what is happening, the chaos that has been thrown on America, then I would like another rational explanation as to why this is happening. And no one can give me one because there isn't. This is done intentionally.
Well, I will give you what I gave to GD, and basically I said, could it be? And I do think this is the situation, that there are different perspectives and people don't necessarily agree on how to fix the problems, and so I don't think anybody is sitting there and saying, how can we ruin America and really just blow up the immigration? Is it as simple as that? That's what you're contending is happening? Like somebody in Biden or Biden himself is sitting around saying, I want to destroy America. How can I do it?
Well, I don't think Biden knows what day of the week it is, but when I write in my book, Mayorkas is the tip of the spear. Alejandro Mayorkas is the secretary of DHS. He was the director of USCIS, which is a huge, powerful part of DHS. It's citizenship and immigration services. And then he was the second in charge, the deputy secretary under Obama. And so you're looking at DACA, prosecutorial discretion, everything. And now you come into Biden and we have the abuse of parole and asylum. So let me ask you a question. As you say, well, how can it be the intentionality of it? Congress is the only branch of the three branches of government that can determine the number and type of legal immigrants coming in our country. We have not changed the number for over 2 decades. It's 1.2 million people a year that we legally immigrate. But The Congress is, which is impotent, I believe, and they've abdicated their authority and given it to the executive branch, which is against the Constitution, and has been proven in multiple Supreme Court cases already. They have determined, Biden's administration has determined that they're going to make the number of legal immigrants. So you have now on an app on your phone called the CBP One app, where they're allowing 43,000 people a month to use asylum and be paroled into America with no security, no checks, 43,000. So you have to ask yourself, wait a minute, what gives them the authority to do that? And why would you open up an avenue to allow 43,000 people plus another 150 to 160,000 people a month being arrested on the border and released? So we are looking at now going into the end of FY 23, which is the end of September, we are going to surpass 3 million people that were arrested and then the vast majority released into America fraudulently. Not to account over, I believe, millions upon millions they're called getaways in my business. So if somebody crossed the border and was undetected and then absconded, the federal government says that now we're close to 2 million of them in Biden's administration, which I laugh at and all my colleagues laugh at. We know that that's almost 5 times that number. So we're looking at anywhere from 12 to 15 million people have been allowed into America, either absconding, no one knowing that they crossed, or they were arrested and released. Now you tell me how that helps America and how that plays into the greatness and security of America and Americans.
Well, I would not be one to say that I have an opinion on how that helps America, but I would definitely say that there are people who believe sincerely in their hearts that helps America for a number of reasons, and they will cite economic growth as one of them. The idea that they actually grows the economy by having people in. But we can get to that whole discussion in a moment. I just want to first, if I can clarify, you mentioned the Border Patrol mission, and GD, if you want to chime in here at any point, just feel free. You can talk over me or any of this kind of stuff. But how do the metric, as far as I can tell, is apprehensions, border apprehensions, right? Is that the metrics which you define success or lack of success on Border Patrol?
No, it's not the metrics, because the
What
numbers.
is the metric?
The metrics is securing the border, meaning whoever crosses that border is detected and arrested. Okay, so let me give you 2 examples, or just give you an example of what it looked like prior to Biden and what it looks like today. So I was in a position where I would get a 24-hour report from all the stations in the Border Patrol would put in their data, and it would come back as a 24-hour report. At the end of Trump's term in office, because he put so much pressure on the Northern Triangle nations and Mexico to secure their borders and not allow the flow of people through into America, plus the border wall was 30% complete. At the height of his success, we were averaging 150 to 450 arrests a day, with about 150 to 300 getaways a day, which is nothing. Over 2,000 miles on the southern border, 5,300 miles of the northern border, and our coastlines. The day that Biden took office, those numbers jumped to over 5,500 arrests and over 35 to 4,000 getaways every single day, and has not stopped since he's taken office. He being the DHS under him and the Border Patrol and OFO and the ports, have arrested almost 7 million people in 30 months. And
Okay.
you say, but I would like to challenge you on, you say, because you're running in New York. So you say, well, it's economic growth, and I dispute that. But let's say you're saying we need 15 more million people for economic growth. Just today, before I came on, a new article came out of your Mayor Adams, screaming to high heaven, I need more money from the federal government. And his quote is, concerning illegal immigrants in his community now are 91,000, which is about 1/100th of your 8.5 million. So 1/100th to 1/1000th of a percent of your population has brought your city's social needs and social welfare to its knees, and I'm quoting your mayor,
I'm
from
not in New York
today
City.
on, New York City, he said, as of today, as social services, it is all downhill from here. There's
Well,
nowhere to hide people anymore.
nowhere to hide
So,
people.
yeah, where are you going to put them? Like he said, well, I have nowhere to put them. So now the mayor of New York City did a no-bid contract for $432 million to a COVID testing company in order to transport illegal aliens out of New York City. So Mayor Adams has said multiple times it is costing New York City annually $4.3 billion to house, educate, on and on and on, 91,000 illegal aliens. It's so bad that he is going to spend $432 million to move these people out, because the false and misnomer narrative that these people are all coming to work is a joke. It's an absolute joke. You look at any article in New York City, Chicago, Philadelphia, Austin, Texas, El Paso, all of these illegal immigrants aren't working. They're sitting on the stoops of hotels, because over half the hotels in New York City are housing illegal aliens. Over half.
I hate to interrupt, but
yeah,
actually,
go ahead.
I don't really hate to interrupt, because if I hated it, I wouldn't do it. But you've gone, Mr. Carroll, or if I can call you JJ.
Yeah, please call me JJ.
Are you the same JJ that ran for, was it in Rapid City?
Yes.
That another,
yes.
Okay.
That's me.
Okay. How did, I don't know how that, I just was just checking to make sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, you threw in a lot of non-truths in there, like the border wall was not close to being completed. That was
I said it was a third. I said it was a third.
Not even close. Not even close.
Yeah,
I think he added
it was about 30% filled. Yes, it was. I was there. I worked it.
Yeah, but
in San Diego. Because to say you were there and worked it, I mean, Texas, Mexico is and New Mexico and Arizona are the longest stretch.
Yeah, we were at 1/3.
No,
one third of the border was being, so we had 2/3 of it not complete. Yeah, that's true.
That is. I don't know how much that you can attribute to Trump, because he only added 50 miles of border wall, new wall.
No.
I think so. Yeah, and even your own Republican people are saying that. So, but the thing is, here's the deal.
Okay.
The solution to immigration is not just going to be a single silver bullet. It's going to have to take multiple facets to take care of it, because it's multiple reasons that these things are happening. So if we get together, if we're trying to fix this as a community, because it affects everybody. If we're trying to fix this as a community, what good does it do for people? And I don't want to mention DeSantis or Abbott by name. I won't do that. But what good would it do for them to complicate the issue by gathering immigrants or people who are trying to seek asylum or whatever, and then shipping them off to different places, to quote liberal places? That's not helping to fix things. That's only making things worse. And if they want to help fix things, I'd like to hear solutions as opposed to little rat traps and booby traps to try to teach the liberals a lesson. See, I'm not sure how your book addresses that, because honestly, I have not read the book, and I'm only become aware of it.
Okay, let me answer your question. Number one, I agree with you. It just exasperates the problem. The only thing that I find that's good about what they did, if you want, I don't hate to use the word good, but you'll get my understanding, is it spotlighted the hypocrisy of the sanctuary cities and the leftist ideas. It spotlighted the hypocrisy. They don't want them there.
Couldn't that be done without making?
Yeah, I'm just saying,
without the abuse. Because if you listen to Republican talking points, the Republican talking points, especially out of the Trump administration, was the cruelty was the point. So the children in the cages, the cruelty was the point. That's from his mouth. The cruelty is the point. And if we're considering the fact that it's not just an immigrant problem, it's a people problem. They're all people. And most of them are doing it to try to find a better life for themselves. Like, what would you do to find a better life for yourself? Whatever is within your options, I assume. Whatever you could do to help make a life better for you and your children. If you had children, I don't know. Again, I didn't read the Bible.
Yes, I do have a child.
Okay,
Yeah.
so whatever it would take to make your child safe within reason, I'm assuming you would do. So if you had to move to Canada, would you move to Canada to save your child? So this is, so we have to look at this as a multifaceted thing. Which is why, if I have this correct, Kamala Harris was in South America trying to help them make their communities more palatable so that people will want to stay. Okay, I see the smirk, and no, I see the smirk.
Jeez.
No. I get no talking points. I don't want to hear the talking points, please. Because the talking points is crap. We can espouse talking points. I want us to literally try to see if we can come up with a solution.
Well, here's my solution. You'll be shocked. I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%.
I wouldn't be shocked because I'm reasonable.
Yeah. And I am very reasonable too, because I believe in America's greatness. I believe in the opportunity and freedom America gives and why people want to come. However, opportunity and freedom in America is grounded in law and order. So when you say people want to come here for betterment, I get it. I arrested those people. I know exactly what it looks like. I know what it looks like when I arrest a murderer and rapist, and I understand when I arrest somebody that's a gardener and a maid that wants to come across. I've been there and done it 1,000 times. What my book talks about and what my argument is we as Americans have created this problem, and now we are reaping what we sowed. Instead of saying to you or to America, what is the number of immigrants that we can take? I always have this discussion with people on the other side. Okay, I want to know what that number is. Is it 10 million, 20? Is it 100 million? Whatever that number is, then we as Americans, through our representatives, go to Congress and they change that number, which is 1.2 million right now, which people need to understand is more. We immigrate legally more than the rest of the nations combined annually, 1.2 million. Okay. Now, if that number needs to change, then let's change it. You just had, and I'm not bagging on the Democrats because Republicans had the House, Senate, and presidency for 2 years as well and did nothing. The Democrats just had all three branches and did nothing to change anything on immigration. And the answer,
but it takes at least the way the Senate works. It takes 60 votes to take a dump.
Right.
Okay. If they want to take a shit, other than taking a shit on the country, if they want to take a regular shit, it takes 60 votes. So for people to say that the Republicans or the Democrats had the Senate for a while, if they didn't have a supermajority, not that much is going to get done.
Right. So but they're all aligned. But we could talk.
So go ahead.
No, but they are aligned, right? They have done nothing on the immigration front except stymie everything from both parties. But why? But my argument continues to stay the same. If America needs more people, economics, Social Security, whatever the argument is, then we change that number legally. Just like Tom McClintock, who's a congressman from a rhino from California, asked Mayorkas last week in a congressional testimony and asked him a question that I've been asking for months and nobody will answer, even broach this question. And someone finally asked Mayorkas and said, "Sir, what is the number of illegal immigrants coming into America that you will stop and secure the nation?" And he wouldn't answer. Why?
Right.
Why
now,
can't you?
Is there a difference between, quote, the number of immigrants that we need for economic purposes and, let's say, refugees who are just trying to escape? Is that a different metric in your mind? Because there are some people escaping
like the war are you talking about Afghanistan?
No. It could be refugees from South America or Central America.
It could be from Ukraine. It could be from Haiti. It could be from a hurricane-torn country. It could be anything.
Let's talk about that.
I'm just
Okay.
saying. I'm just asking: are those metrics separate from what that 1.2 million number that you want to increase?
Yes,
Is this
that's
a separate
separate.
metric?
That's separate. 1.2
Okay.
million is economic, family ties,
Unification?
right?
Oh, okay.
Not unification, but it's family ties. I'm going to marry someone. I'm bringing my father or my mother. Some kind of issue like that. That's different than the refugees. But so when you talk, and I would like to segue just for a second. You talk about refugees and like we brought in 86,000, I think, Afghanis and then Venezuelans, et cetera, mainly Venezuelans and Haitians and Cubans through the CBP1 app, which is fraudulent, but they bring them through that way. There's so many avenues coming in.
Okay, don't just say it's fraudulent and throw it out there because there are a lot of you have done.
Okay, let me explain it.
Okay, I was gonna say you've done your homework and your research on this, and the average person is taking, especially average Republican, is taking what you say as gospel, and the average Democrat is taking what you say as bullshit. So
you may explain the CBP1 app?
Yeah, if you could, please.
So CBP. Yeah. Okay, and you're right. Thank you very much for pointing that out because everything in my book is footnoted and documented. This is not anything that I talk about today is not something that, man, this is what I hope should happen. And I believe this is theoretical. This is happening. I explain it in my book. I explain it right here. So the CBP1 app, you go on your iPhone, just like it's the same as you guys are familiar with the Open Table app where you want to go to a restaurant, you go to Open Table, and you get a reservation at Joe Schmo's Bar and Grill, whatever. It's my favorite restaurant. My wife and I want to go. That's the technology.
$10. You just got $10 for groceries.
There you go.
IRS is not going to ding you on that.
But I use that same technology in my CBP1 app, and I go into my iPhone and I click on a interview with a port of entry, Office of Field Operation, which is called OFO. Let's say San Ysidro Port of Entry, which is in San Diego or south of San Diego. So I now walk into the port of entry and I go to the immigration officer and say, please scan my iPhone. My name is so-and-so. Okay, come on in. You're now going to be paroled, which is illegal. And I'll explain that in a second. Paroled under asylum. Okay, now parole in federal immigration is completely different than state and local parole, like prisons. Like I'm going to parole someone out of prison and I'm going to say, okay, listen, Joe Smith, if you're going to come and take drug tests and if you stay clean and don't commit any crimes, you don't have to go back to jail and you're going to go to halfway house and you're going to go into society. Okay. That's parole in the way that we think. Immigration parole is so rarely used. It's used for me as an agent. I make an arrest. I bring in a material witness from Mexico, Guatemala, wherever, or somebody from El Salvador has a rare disease that the doctor in America is one of the top doctors, the only doctor to do it, will parole that person in. Okay. Right. Humanitarian so it's so rarely used. I can't really articulate to you how rarely used it is. And when it is used, it is tightly scrutinized. And we watch that person come in and we make sure that person leaves. What Mayorkas has done is he's taken parole and stretched it and broke it and said, everybody is able to be paroled. Okay. So let me give you an example of what happens with the CBP1 app. And it's going to tie back in to why I say it's intentional and why I agree with you, sir, that this is, you and I are trying to talk about solutions, but the powers to be don't want solutions. They want power and wealth. And I'll explain. So a CBP1 app.
So let's reach out to the people. Let's give solutions or find solutions or come closer so that the people watching can put the pressure on because the one thing that's driving our politicians is money. And money.
It's all about money.
Yeah. So and if you want to, the only counter to money is votes. because we don't have enough money, even as individuals. If we pool our money together, we're not matching the money that is put together by PACs.
I don't want to derail this, but
Yeah.
I think you're hitting on something that I want to bring the conversation back to. And if you want to continue on those points, you can. But before you came on this morning, JJ, I was talking to GD about the intentional destruction, and he agreed. He said, but not to the point where he believes that it's Joe Biden's intent as much as it is America's intent. Now, when we come to the idea of why people come to this country and why, whether they're coming for work or whether they're coming here with criminal intent, there's drug dealers and all this stuff. They are driven by, and to come back to your thing about they don't want to work, they're driven by jobs in some cases. I've worked with alongside migrant workers, picking oranges for a living. I put myself through high school with these people. I've understood some of that culture. They're coming here for a variety of reasons, but all of it has to do with demand. As corporations and as individuals, aside from the government, corporations benefit from the cheap labor. Individuals, homeowners, especially in my neighborhood. Now, I'm not in New York City, but people often say, go get a Mexican. That covers any brown person who's an immigrant from Home Depot or 7-Eleven to do your yard work. We are empowering that as people, working against any government intention, whether you believe that, the president or Congress is intentionally weakening the border. We are still empowering it as people and as corporations. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I absolutely agree with it. And then,
if that's the problem, there's no governmental solution if we're going to keep doing that, is there?
Well, there is a governmental solution. It's called securing the border, because the vast majority of Americans don't want millions upon millions. Where are you going to put 10 to 15 million gardeners if that's what is coming through? So wait a minute. The majority of all immigrants illegal immigrants coming into America are almost 50% functionally illiterate in their own language. This is a fact. This is not any kind of disparaging. So I'm telling you that if we're going to, so let's just go say Biden wins another.
What's the percentage of people who come here legally, let's say through visas, and then just stay, because then they become illegal? Are those numbers
like visas, overstay visas?
Yeah. No, not available. I know they're available. Are those numbers part of what you're saying when you say illegal? Because they have become illegal also, yes. Even though, here's, you want
to know the number of that?
So the border wall is not going to stop those people from flying in.
No, but I love it. Okay, this goes right dovetails into why I believe that this is all intentional. 9/11 happens. The majority of those guys are all on visas. Some of them overstayed visas.
We agree that actually the three of us agree that it's all intentional. What we're hoping to do is find some kind of common ground where we can stop blaming Biden and stop blaming Trump and stop blaming
why not?
Because
why not blame them? Because they're doing it.
Well, I would say I disagree with that. I think whether you think they're doing it or not, we are doing it. We, the American people, we, the corporations, we, the people in my neighborhood who go to Home Depot to employ illegal immigrants because they're cheaper and often work harder than the Americans that they could get, union workers and all of. They are empowering it. So if that's demand is always, the supply will never stop, no matter what you do on the border. As long as there's demand for them, they're going to risk their lives. They're going to find a way to get through. As long as we keep demanding it, and how can you ever secure a border?
Well, let's go down that road then. You're saying that we have to continue the illegality, the criminality of people coming across our border to sustain our desire. Same thing with drugs. Well, no, wait. Wait a minute. So what's the answer then? Is the answer to not have a border and just have a free flow of people?
The answer is changing people's behaviors as far as employing them. Corporations, we need to crack down on people, my neighbors who are going
hiring.
Hiring, corporations hiring. My neighbors But as long as you don't change those, you'll never, no matter how much effort you put and money you throw at border security, those people are going to find a way because the demand is here.
Yeah, how often have you heard of a raid of a factory being raided and 30 or 40 illegal immigrants are being taken away, but the company itself is not held responsible for having them?
Gibson guitars, I can tell you, they're
Listen,
notorious.
There's no argument on my part. This
But
is
that's what I'm
this
saying.
is
But so unless we
the
address
totality.
that, yeah, but
let's address it.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. We need to so that's not a Biden thing. Okay,
That's
no,
an
it's not.
American thing.
It's not
It's
a
an
Biden.
American
Biden
thing.
does not write laws. Biden does not. What was the last ball?
Okay.
Biden, the last one he wrote, not signed.
No, but
See,
you're
that's
having
what I'm saying.
you're okay. Right now, the people that the agencies that is in charge of going for employer sanctions and finding criminal aliens in our country to release them is ICE. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
ICE does not do their job anymore. They are, and this is, I'm talking to you from a guy that's been there and guys that keep calling me and telling me they do no workforce enforcement, zero, being told to them from Mayorkas. They do no interior patrol, meaning they're down 80% of arrests and deportations, and that's their main job.
Now,
They're getting told.
Now, just a quick question.
Okay.
Now, because because again, now I'm wondering because I don't know about the budgetary side of this, but let's say to give the audience something to grasp onto, let's pretend that the number of agents was 100, and the number of people coming in was, let's say, 200 at one point. Then each ICE agent is responsible for stopping 2 people. If the budget does not get increased and they still have 100 agents, but now there's 4,000 people coming in, they're responsible for keeping an eye on that many more people. So now, is it not incumbent upon Congress to address the needs of ICE? And if it's incumbent upon Congress to address those needs, then Congress needs to look at what ICE is doing. Congress needs to look at those things and maybe spend a little bit more time trying to find a solution on that, as opposed to investigating the Biden family every chance they get. That's what I'm saying. Because right now they're on hiatus, they're on vacation, and they took vacation.
And the world's and our country's falling apart.
Yeah,
right.
And they took a day. So if things are as bad as you're saying, then the people who share your point of view, who are in Congress, they should be the fuck working and not at home avoiding the situations and not trying to investigate Biden because they want Biden to be as damaged as Trump is. See, they should be doing that job. So I don't know if that's addressed in your book or not, but it is part of Congress.
Yeah, well, my book addresses all of the issues that are happening on the border and why they're happening. And I do not, and in my book, I put in there, this is not a slam on Democrats. They're just in power and they're more malicious in this intent. I blame the Republicans as well. Absolutely.
More malicious. And
yes,
that means
I find Secretary Mayorkas to be a traitor to our nation. Absolutely. I look at everything he's done.
Isn't that a legal thing? Because I could just
traitor, yes, because he's doing things.
I could just easily say that Trump is a traitor because we have we have audio of him and witnesses of him showing classified documents to a person without clearance.
That's a whole other discussion for another day.
I'm just talking about the
now
word
let me
traitor.
just can if we
I just want to get rid of the word
and
traitor.
I love your passion and I find you to be very reasonable, but I don't want to debate about how bad Trump is or how good he is. I want to debate about
the word traitor. I was talking about the fact that you said in your
opinion. Oh, I am. I put that in my book, and I don't hide from it. I don't hide from it.
What I'm saying is, if that's the case, if your opinion that he's a traitor, that doesn't mean crap. Your opinion doesn't really, be honest, your opinion that he's a traitor doesn't mean crap. Just like my opinion that Trump is a traitor doesn't mean crap. I'm just saying, let's stop with that.
Does it? Okay, well, here's me.
If his actions are tasteless, let's talk about his actions.
Let JJ finish the thought.
Now, look, listen, it can mean crap to you. It can mean that's the greatest thing in the world. My opinion. One thing that the impetus that what made me say, okay, I'm going to get back into this. I've only been retired for 2 years. So about a year into my retirement, I got sucked back into this because I wanted nothing to do with it. Nothing. I was so disgusted with, now I love my career. I love my Border Patrol agents that I work with and I supervise. Those guys they're heroes in my mind. But I was so disgusted with the politicians, the upper leadership of the DHS, that I wanted nothing. I just leave me alone and let me go about my life and let me be with my wife and my kid. And I got sucked back in because I refused to just be the problem. I wanted to get into it. So when I wrote my book, I just said, I write as I speak. This is what I believe. And when I'm 85 years old, God willing, I live that old, so I see my son get married and have kids. When I'm sitting on the porch, I'm not going to say, well, yeah, America is blowing right now because you know what? Maybe I should have said something. No, at least even if I'm 100% wrong, at least I got involved in and I go on hundreds of podcasts, major television shows, and I speak the truth, and you don't have to like it. No one has to like what I say.
I agree with you. I support you wholeheartedly in that endeavor. I'm just saying, for the sake of our conversation, calling people traitors without them having the benefit of legal counsel,
that's fine. But I do enumerate, like, specifically. This is not, hey, this is what I feel, and I need a safe space. No, this is what this man has done. I'm going to enumerate it. Here are all the data. I lived it. I watched it. I implemented the policies that were mind-boggling to do. So this is not like a theoretical. This is what I believe. This is what I know factually has happened, and that's my conclusion. We don't have to agree, and I don't expect us to agree. The one thing that we do agree on is America taking care of Americans and making sure that Americans are cared for. Let me give you an example. In the city of Chicago, they're losing their mind. And you're going to see a giant, not a race war, you're going to see some kind of citizen versus non-citizen war if you look in Chicago at all. Last week or 2 weeks ago, the city council diverted $51 million from the residents of Chicago to illegal aliens, only 10,000 of them. People are losing their mind in Chicago. The black residents, who I just saw an article yesterday, came out and said, we've had it with all these illegal immigrants. They're defecating on the sidewalks. They're destroying our neighborhoods, and they're fighting us. And one of the residents, or excuse me, two of the residents were interviewed. One was, I don't know if he's a gang member, but it just, everything said gang member, okay? Said, if you don't, okay, let's just say he's an average person. He said, if you do not, to the police, if you do not stop this, we will take care of it ourselves.
All right, finish that thought really quick. Hold on, GD. GD, wait 1 second. I gotta. We are running up against the clock on one of my networks. I'm going to have to get off. If you guys can stick around, because I do think this is an engaging conversation, and I do want to kind of bring some focus back to it. But at first, I have to ask, can you hang out a little bit longer while we say goodbye to Gov's podcast network? I'm going to remove them right now. Check us out tomorrow, guys. If you find this interesting, the entire thing will be on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, all those places, Twitter, wherever you find us, Twitch.